Hi, this is John with Versafeed.com. Today we're going to be looking at how to use our tool, Google Shopping Manager or GSM, to create real-world groups of products that we can then bid on individually within Google Shopping. Okay, so let's take care of some quick housekeeping first. One, you might want to increase the resolution of this or go full screen. Two, we have an entire other screencast called Bidding Strategies, and I'll put up a link to that on the screen right now. That goes over a much more general overview of Google Shopping best practices for bidding. This presentation is going to focus more on actually utilizing GSM to create some real world examples that we can then bid on and actually utilize. Okay, so let's jump in. Here we are at the Versafeed.com homepage. We're going to go ahead and click Client Login so we can get to the client dashboard. We're then going to go ahead and click over here on Google Shopping Manager, and then we're going to click Bid Management. Okay, so this screen here shows us the list of various rule sets that we have. There's two right now. You can have as many as you want. Only one can be active at any given time because that's the one that actually establishes your product groups and allows you to bid on those product groups. So let's go ahead and click on the active one called Demo Winter Set and start making some actual product groups. Okay, so finally here we are in the actual bidding rules, and we're going to go ahead and just walk through a bunch of examples here. There's a lot of different things on this screen. There's a lot of different ways to create rules. There's compound rules, there's different comparators, there's different criteria. So if it gets a bit confusing at first, don't worry. We're going to walk through these, and I think by the end of this, you're going to understand it. So initially, right off the bat, you can see we have one default rule, and that's the rule that is going to be utilized if none of the other additional rules that we're about to add actually get utilized. You can see we've set that default rule to a penny, and we've used the promotional text, all shoes on sale. This example is a shoe retailer. Also, there's some sporting goods mixed in there. Okay, so part of the initial problem is what rules do we want to create? Well, the easiest way to do it, initially at least, is to break down your products based on price. So we're going to make groups based on the price of your product, which is something that's really challenging to do in the AdWords interface, but is very basic to do in the Google Shopping Manager interface. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create 3 new groups, and we're going to base them on the price of the products. So we're going to add here the first one, and we'll say 25 or less. The next one we'll say 25 to 200, and then we'll say 200 plus. Now these names that I've added here, these are really arbitrary. You can call them whatever you want. It's just for your own reference when you're coming back in here, or if you're looking at this inside of AdWords later on, you can see what it was you were thinking when you actually created the group. So now let's go ahead and actually fill these rules out. So the first thing we have to do is say what's the criteria we're going to use to actually make this $25 or less. And you can see we've got a big drop down list here of various criteria. Right now we're actually looking at the real power that this tool has, and part of that is how many different criteria you can base these rules on. So because we're talking about price, we're going to choose price for all of these. So I'll go ahead and set that. And the next thing we're going to do actually is choose what I call the comparator here, and we're going to say less than for this one, and then we'll say 25. And then for this one, we're going to say less than, and we'll say 200. And this one we'll leave, well, we'll set greater than or equal to 200. So now we can actually choose to set the bids, but we've already really got the whole thing squared away in terms of a 3-tiered price bidding system. And it's really that simple. So we'll go ahead and set up some bids here. We'll say if it's $25 or less, it's really not a very expensive product, so we'll just bid 5 cents. If it's 25 to 200, maybe we'll bid 20, and then for 200 plus, maybe we'll bid $1. Of course, this is just totally arbitrary. So now let's talk a little bit more about the promotional text. That's a chunk of text that will display next to your ads when they actually display on Google.com and occasionally on Google Shopping. So you can put whatever you want there. But the cool thing is when we're breaking up our groups here, we can actually list each one very differently. So let's say, for example, we have a promotion where if the product is over $25, we offer free shipping. So for the first group, we might have to say something really bland like great shoes. But for the second group now, we can say free shipping, and we can just say the same thing here for the third group. So you can see that it allows us to break up the promotional text based on the groups that we have. when you're creating these groups, you want to use the preview feature that we have to see how many products are actually matching each rule. Otherwise, you might set up a rule, especially if it's complicated, that has no matches. And of course, that's not good. So what we do is we go over here, and when you hover over this little magnifying glass, you'll see it says preview exclusions. So let's go ahead and click that. Okay, and what you'll see is that in two different areas here, it pops up and it says 12 matches. So of course, this is going to be dependent on your products, but you're going to want to at least make sure that that kind of makes sense. Let's try it now for the middle group here. You'll see we have 87 matches. And let's go ahead now and try it for the last one. And you'll see it says 11 matches. You can also get some grouping or some preview stats here by clicking this up here, which I'm not going to do, but you can do that yourself if you'd like to. And then another feature that we have over here is the history. And this allows you, very much like AdWords allows you to do, to check out all the different changes that you've made over time. So that's another great feature here if you're looking to see what you did previously. Okay, so now we're going to actually try to create some more complicated rules here and see how this can create what I would call more real-world groupings. So first, let's go ahead and click New Ad Group, and we're going to call this initially Boots. So let's just say that we're interested in focusing on boots for this particular rule. So we're going to change this here, the criteria, to internal category. And you'll see here now the comparator is different. Before we had greater than, less than, etc. because we were using price. Now we have a whole new set of comparators here. Everything from is to contains the word to starts with to regular expressions, so on and so forth. So we're just going to say contains the word, and we'll say boots. So in this fashion, if your category actually has the word boots in it somewhere, it'll match this rule. And we'll go ahead and set the bid to something like, let's say, for example, we make really good return on our boots, so we'll set it to 40 cents. And again, the cool thing about breaking these up into these groups with the promotional text is we can say something here that's relevant to boots. So boots for less. I mean, that's silly, but you get the idea. Okay, so then let's go ahead and do a preview and see if this actually works. Okay, cool. So we have 45 matches. Okay, so let's add some more criteria. Okay, so let's say now we want to actually make this only for leather boots, because that, for whatever reason, is our real moneymaker. So we're going to go down here, and we're going to go ahead and click Add Rule. And now we're going to do something kind of fancy. We're going to say name, which is the title of the product. We're going to say contains the word, and we're going to say leather. And we'll go ahead and change this to leather boots. The cool thing that's actually happening here is that even if you didn't have your categories set up real prim and proper, where you have boots and then you have a separate category for leather boots, you can get around that here because we're using this name contains the word leather rule. And that's pretty awesome because it allows you to subdivide your groups even if you didn't do that when you added them to your e-commerce system. So now let's just, for fun here, say deals on leather boots as we get more specific. And let's go ahead, as I mentioned previously, and make sure that we do a preview here to make sure we're actually matching products that we expect. Okay, and you'll see that we actually didn't. So you'll see here we had 45 matches for internal category contains the word boots, but we had 0 for name contains the word leather. So let's go ahead and mix this up a little bit here, and we'll change this to say description contains the word leather. And now let's do another preview here. Okay, now we're making progress here. So you'll see we went total over here on the right-hand side from 45 to 40, as in we removed 5 products that weren't leather boots. So this is really where the preview function comes in handily. So let's go ahead and continue making this rule more and more specific. So we'll go ahead and come down here and we will add another rule. And so let's do this time, let's say price. So maybe we have some cheap leather boots and maybe we have some expensive ones, and we're only interested now in promoting the leather boots that are expensive. So let's go ahead and say price greater than 200. So as you can see, again, we're really drilling down here, and this is something that's really easy to do within Google Shopping Manager, but is kind of a nightmare to do directly via AdWords. And we'll change this now to say free shipping on leather boots. So it's really cool again because this is going to pop up right next to this group when people search for this, and it's extremely relevant versus something just like free shipping or great deals on shoes. Now we've got something very contextually oriented for this particular group. And again, the magic here, let's make sure we preview this and see what happens. We have 40 matches now. We should see that drop as we add the price rule. Okay, great. So now we have 5 matches, which makes sense. So to showcase the power of Google Shopping Manager, let's really make this group even more specific. Let's say, for example, the marketing department comes back and says, this group's doing great, but we really only want to do Italian leather boots. And not only that, but we want to make sure that these are products we have a high inventory of, as in we've got a warehouse and they're full of these products. So we really want to just move these along. So let's go ahead and add 2 new rules here to actually get that accomplished. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, again, description, and we'll say contains the word, and then we'll put in Italian. And then here is the nifty one. You can actually say inventory. I think this actually might be off the screen of the screencast, but you'll see it in a second here. And so you can say inventory is greater than, less than, so we'll say greater than, for example, 20. As in, we've got a whole bunch of these products sitting in our warehouse, and we really want to unload these. So again, this is something at this point that would basically be impossible to do via Google AdWords directly, but using Google Shopping Manager, it's fairly straightforward. And we can even, again, use promotional text here that's extremely relevant. So now we can say, for example, Italian leather surplus sale. You get the idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through a few more examples here. Let's do 2 new groups. We're going to call one sandals generic, and we're going to call one sandals branded. So this would be an easy way to subdivide your products into branded versus non-branded. So we'll say internal category contains the word sandal, and we will do that for both of these. And what we're going to do here is then add a second rule for each. So let's do that. So for the generic sandals, what we're going to say is brand. And there's a couple of ways to do this. If you only had one generic sandal, let's say, for example, Acme, you could get away with just saying, and the brand is Acme. And then for this, we would do something similar but negated, and we would say brand does not contain word Acme. And this would subdivide it up perfectly well. So we could say for the generic sandals, we'd do a very low bid, and for the branded sandals, do something maybe higher. But let's say you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, that's not how my system is. So if that's the case, what you can do is this actually, these little green arrows here will pop this out and expand. So you could say Acme, you could say generic 1, generic 2, whatever brands you have that are generic. And then down here, let's say you had the same situation where you wanted to actually specify by hand which different brands are going to be considered, quote unquote, branded name sandals. So instead of does not contain the word, you could say contains the word, and then you could say something like Nike, Reebok, etc. Whatever brands you feel deserve to be considered a branded sandal. Okay, another method of grouping that I'm going to show you here is kind of interesting in that it changes how we do these multiple rules. So let's add 3 compound rules here, like we've been doing before. We're going to call this the sale group. And we're going to do this in kind of a weird way, but it's more for example than anything. We'll say description contains the word sale, or description contains the word clearance. And let's just do a last one. We'll say description contains the word, and we'll do something ridiculous like blowout or something. So the problem with this group as it stands right now is that it won't really work because it's going to require the description to contain all 3 words, sale, clearance, and blowout. What we're really looking to do is say if it contains sale or clearance or blowout, we'll go ahead and use this group. So all we have to do to change that is click right here, and it says items matching all of the following rules, and we're going to change that to any of the following rules. And that's now going to say if it contains the word sale or clearance or blowout, the rule will trigger. Okay, and lastly, we're just going to do a simple SKU bid, and I'll just call this SKU1. And this is just a demonstration of how you can do individual detailed SKUs. So you would say SKU is, and then just enter in your SKU codes. Now, if you wanted to make it more than one, you can always, like I showed before, you can click this and enter in whatever SKUs you want. And this allows you obviously to create extremely specific bids. If these were, let's say, extremely expensive items, or for whatever reason we wanted to have a high bid, you could put $5 here or something along those lines. And that's going to allow you to do extremely detailed bids. So if you're a large retailer, you might be wondering how you could possibly use this web tool to manage the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of products that you have in your inventory. The method that our larger retailers use is to manage this via an Excel file. So you can download over here, you'll see demo winterset.csv, and that's going to allow you to get all these bids that you've placed in a comma-separated value format that you can then modify in Excel. And that's where you can really do, thousands and thousands of bids and rules if you need to do that without going through this web interface. And then you'll see down near the bottom here, this is the area where you can actually upload the CSV file. So usually clients will start making a few basic rules. If they do have a lot of products, they'll then download that CSV file, make all the modifications they want, and then they'll come back to this particular area right here, find the modified CSV file, and then upload it. Okay, and last but not least, let's go ahead and scroll up here a little bit and make sure that we save all the rules that we've been working so hard on for the last 10 minutes. I'll just click right here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now that we've saved the rules, the backend system here of Google Shopping Manager is going to sync all of those to AdWords. And you'll see some information at the top of the screen here. Last sync to AdWords was today at 3:39 in the morning. And last rule set change was right now as we just clicked Save Rule Set. So the system is now going to go ahead and interact with the Google AdWords API, push all these changes live. And what we're going to do now is wait a minute and then go actually check out what this whole system looks like inside of AdWords. So in case you actually are in AdWords or you modify bids in AdWords, or for whatever reason you want to use AdWords directly sometimes and not just utilize this tool, I want to make sure you get to see what the layout looks like inside of AdWords directly. Okay, so we've waited a few minutes here and you'll see that now the last sync to AdWords happened a few minutes ago. So all the data has now been pushed from Google Shopping Manager into Google AdWords. So let's take a look and see what that structure looks like inside of Google AdWords. Okay, so here we are in AdWords. The first thing you should note is that all of the different rules you create inside of Google Shopping Manager get pushed into a single campaign inside of AdWords. And that's a recommended best practice from Google, and it's also something that we feel works well. So this has been all pushed into a single campaign, and we're now looking at this one campaign, and we're looking at the various ad groups within that campaign. And what you're going to first notice is that all of the titles here for the ad groups correlate directly to the groupings that we created within Google Shopping Manager, and as well as the default maximum cost per click column here. That's going to correlate directly to the bid that was specified within Google Shopping Manager when the group was created. However, we can't see the full picture quite yet, because if you're familiar with Google AdWords and how Google Shopping works, you also know that you have to set up what's called auto targets, and we have not looked at that yet. So let's take a quick jump back to the Google Shopping Manager, and let's look at one group just as an example here. So we'll say sandals generic, and let's do the preview. And you can see over here on the right-hand side, we had 9 matches. So let's go ahead and go back to AdWords and take a look at that one particular ad group and see what we can find. So here we have sandals generic. What we'll find here is that we've created 9 different auto targets, one for each of the SKUs that was part of the original grouping for generic sandals. And there's many technical ways that this could be set up inside of AdWords. However, after looking at this for a long time, this is definitely the best way to go about it. The reason for this is very simple. We're going to want to get at some point not just data on the group as a whole, how did generic sandals do. We're also going to want to drill down and say, okay, that's all well and good, but I want to see how each of the SKUs that were part of generic sandals did. The only way to accomplish that is to bid this in the fashion that you see here, where each auto target is one of the SKUs from the actual generic sandals group. That's going to allow us later on when we're post-processing this data to try to increase ROI inside of something like Google Analytics, Core Metrics, or Omniture. It's going to allow us to see not only how the group did as a whole, but also to get details on each individual SKU. And at that point, then we can refine the group, we can remove products that might be performing poorly, or we can increase bids on products that are performing very well within this generic sandals group. So this is really the key to success here, is putting these auto targets in, each individually, one per SKU, and that's going to allow us to do a lot of very fancy analysis later. Lastly, I'm just going to mention that we do have a fully integrated reporting feature within Google Shopping Manager that allows you to look at all the different groups you created as well as the individual SKUs within each group. So I'll go ahead and click this tab, which is going to show you a really brief preview here. As you can see, previously we were looking at bid management, and now we are on performance reports. You can see there's quite a few different groups that we can look at here in the tab section. You can look at each different group, you can look at SKUs, brands, categories, and you can get performance data back on how much you spent, how much you made, and then obviously adjust your strategy based on the information that you have here. But again, we're going to do a whole screencast on this, so come back to this in the future and we will have a presentation for you on that. Okay, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long screencast. I hope we covered a lot of information. Please check out our website at versafeed.com. We have a very active blog there. If you'd like to talk to somebody here, you can always email us, info@versafeed.com. You can also call us at the number you see on the screen. Again, thank you for watching and best of luck utilizing Google Shopping.